Hello, everyone. Thank you. I think we've had some really exciting sessions, and this one is, I would say, quite unique in 2025 to be talking about diesel, but I think we are taking a very realistic view of it. I think we all know that India is a country that actually runs on diesel. There's no doubt about it. Our transportation depends heavily on it. Unfortunately, it's got a bad name over the years. A lot of judicial activism against it, general activism against it. It's become the favorite whipping boy, which is quite easy to knock. And I think, at some conclaves, people don't even like to mention the D word. But here we are. We are talking about the future of diesel. A lot of people have questioned the future of diesel, but quite honestly, I think as we go forward, we do realize that, you just take sheer facts, sheer numbers, sheer measurements out of the tailpipe, and at the end of the day, diesel can be super clean as well. And, honestly, I think we need to give diesel its due, and that's why we are having this panel. And, actually, I'd like to kick this off with, talking to one of the suppliers, Mr. Viswanath, just to understand, diesel's got a bad name and a bad image. Let's get straight to the point. Is this a challenge? I mean, does this kind of put the entire industry on the back foot, despite deep down we know that it's not as bad or as dirty as it's made out to be? Obviously, it's got a past history, Dieselgate, all that sort of thing. But, it's been vilified the world over, and I think just wanted your thoughts on really going ahead in this kind of backdrop and this perception it generally faces.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for this opportunity. In fact, we're very happy that such a conclave is actually happening where we are talking about diesel openly. And I think it's a good chance for us to be realistic and frank about it. Now, if you look at diesel, it has got a very, very bad image purely because of the past where badly maintained vehicles, etc., have changed the picture. Now, in this BS6 era, with every vehicle having a DPF, I think the exhaust air or the air that comes out of the exhaust is sometimes possibly cleaner than what is going inside. We talked about 42 of the 50 most polluted cities in the country, in the world, are in India, and possibly these diesel engines are actually going to be an air purifying machines for them. It's quite possible.
But in fairness, one could also say the older diesel engines are hugely responsible for that poor AQI as well.
Yes, and we know people talk about fleet replacement, etc. All those things happen, but there is no substitute, there's no excuse for bad maintenance. If you maintain a vehicle badly, it will behave badly. So we can't talk about that. Second, I think diesel engines are known to be always very fuel efficient. Comparable emission level, comparable performance, a diesel engine is at least 20% better than a comparable petrol engine. Okay? And if you take BS6 today, the exhaust is clean, the NOx levels are very similar. What are the problems associated with diesel engines? NOx and particulate. Right.
Two bad guys, yeah.
And for both we have solutions.
Yeah. HC and CO are very less.
HC and CO are less. That is also a resultant of the better fuel consumption.
Right.
If you look at NOx and PM, we have got after treatment for both or in-cylinder treatment. Therefore, what comes out of the vehicle today is very comparable to what's happening on a gasoline engine. And then on top of that, you got the extra bonus of 20% better fuel consumption. Why are we not lapping it up? I thought Petkar also talked about previously on the bill, import bill, etc. In an era where we need to focus a lot on fuel consumption, then why are we bad-mouthing diesels? We should not be. We should actually be lapping it up and saying, how can we make it better? And that's what we have all done. In fact, I would say to the credit of the OEMs and technology providers like us, jumping from BS4 to BS6 was a very, very big step, not done anywhere in the world. Everywhere, people do it in steps, Euro 1, Euro 2, Euro 3, Euro 4, Euro 5, etc. Whereas we took a bold steps of saying, we'll go directly from BS4 to BS6. It's a big challenge. We didn't know technology, we didn't know what is applicable to India, but we achieved it. We did it on time, successfully, running for the last 4 years very well, and we are now in step 2 also of BS6. So I think what we have to remember is diesel engines are very good. We should not badmouth them. Don't give them a bad image. Correct the image. We need to educate. And conclaves like this actually help us that way. We can actually spread the message that diesels are good if we can harness it very well.
Right. On that note, thanks. I think that sets the context, Mr. Viswanath. Velu, I'd like to turn to you. Clearly looking at the success of Mahindra, frankly, largely because of the excellent powertrains. I mean, you'll still to get into the BEV space in a big way, which I'm sure we've spoken about that. That also is the next big jump for you all. But, just take us through, from an OEM point of view, I think, how do I say, there was a vision maybe about 7-8 years back to invest in a completely new engine family. From what I understand, it was an investment of about 4,000 crores at that point. Clearly, it was at a time when, Dieselgate had happened and, there was this whole specter of diesel. But Mahindra went ahead and clearly we are seeing the results of that. So, following on what Mr. Viswanath said, diesel, the latest diesels, what you'll have, BS6 compliant, I think they're future-proofed even for possibly BS7 at some point. So clearly, I mean, diesel has been a pretty good powertrain for this, for India, for your products. And it's seems to have a future at least, for the next 10-15 years.
It's very well put, Hormazd. Maybe I give some feel about diesel, what I learned in the last 28 years, and then I say about how did we decide in 2017 to put the 4,000 crore program on the new diesel. I've been traveling, I usually test the vehicles, so we test in the sea area and the highway area and the mountains. Ooty Mountains and Leh, Ladakh, all the places I've gone, and Saint Maurice in Europe, everywhere you go. Whenever I went to Ooty Mountains and Leh, Ladakh, you find Mahindra vehicles, the diesel vehicles with the 7-seater, and people are hogging onto it with maybe 15-20 people. And when I went to UP, I saw the Boleros and the Scorpios pulling large number of people, transportation from point A to B, where the government buses are not available. Two things it matters to them. One is the fuel efficiency, another is the reliability, third is the bigger vehicles for them. That's the most important thing for them. I think the diesel served that purpose quite well, which gasoline couldn't do that. In terms of fuel efficiency, in terms of pulling, in terms of terrains, and all these stuffs. That's why diesel lives in the hearts of the people and not in the courtrooms. I'm not per se saying something about court, but I'm just saying that. Coming to what happened to the diesel, two things happened. As you rightly mentioned, the old diesels where when you are driving in a city, suddenly you find one of the car emitting a
black
diesel
smoke.
That's the image that you carry out of the so many clean diesels that are running. One spot spoils the whole thing. That's why you have in airports so much of screening for one potential passenger carrying something, everybody gets screened. The other thing is the scandals that erupted around meeting the emissions, which we should have avoided. And the one truck that goes or any car that goes in the city, there are so many police, I'm appealing to the police community. If you find that such trucks, please take away the key. You put so many two-wheelers fines. We see it when we are going in the public road, so many two-wheelers parking and paying the keys. But why don't you punish these trucks who are emitting the, any vehicle, not only trucks, any vehicle. So that's the two appeal that you will make. Now we know worldwide, at least 15% fuel efficient is the diesel compared to the gasoline. And if you are going for the bigger vehicles to the smaller vehicles, in below 1.5 liter, let's say, above 1.5 liter, even today, in 2024, if you see the three main luxury makers in the Europe, their market share of the diesel is 30, 35, and 40%. Is the diesel market share today? And they are quiet about it, but that is what his customer is willing to pay, because It's a one single powertrain. It's very high fuel efficient, very highly refined, yet it meets the most demanding emission norms of Euro 6D. And it is very useful for the CO2 meeting with the lowest cost penalty to the companies. So in terms, it's a sweet boy for a bigger vehicles, for a fuel efficiency, for meeting the CO2 norms, yet it is very highly reliable, yet it meets all the pollution norms. And we know in 2018 that whatever you may say, by 2025, we will reach 30% electric vehicles, 40% electric vehicles, ICE vehicles will come down. That's the projection at that point in time. Now we know how much the percentage of electric and hybrids and so on. We knew from intuitiveness that the ICE vehicles will continue and we need a brand new diesel engine. And because the segment that we are operating in, SUV operate.
And if I'm not mistaken, this investment happened after Dieselgate. When
after the Dieselgate, right after the Dieselgate. So
that was the bet you all took.
There was so much of pushback from many quarters, from the friends, from everywhere. But we stick to our gun and then we said we have projected. The diesel is likely to grow in the SUV market, just like what we said in Europe, how it is. Before the electric vehicles and hybrids can become a normal standard mode of transportation. So we invested it, and that is what helped us in 2020 onwards. All our SUVs, with the brand new diesel engine, it had an SCR system, it had a DPF system. It is designed to be an Euro 6 engine, Euro 6, Euro 7, and Euro 7 Plus. I think that benefited us both as a
So you future-proofed it from that point for future, right?
Yes, brand new.
No, fantastic. I think it's quite evident that your powertrains have really driven a lot of your success. And it's quite interesting that, when BS6 came, how many OEMs just got out of diesel,
Yes.
So, and just a few people were standing. And Mr. Petkar, I want to turn to you. I mean, along with Mahindra, Tata held its belief in diesel. And frankly, you all did something quite innovative also, which you all got to BS6 without SCR, with just LNT on your 1.5, along with, TVS Delphi. So I think it's really, that was quite a remarkable innovation. Again, I'm sure driven by costs, which a lot of our innovations in India are driven by. But Mr. Petkar, two things. One is first, while others exited diesel, obviously global OEMs for global compunctions, what was happening in Europe, they lost their faith in diesel. A big loss, and I think must have been a big gain for Tata Motors as well, because very few OEMs remaining in the diesel space, which must have been a huge opportunity. And also, I'd love you to share how you kind of met BS6 with without having to go to the complicated route of AdBlue, SCR, having a urea tank, and just going with a simple LNT, let's say conversion or upgrade.
Yeah, so thank you, Hormazd. Two questions. Before I deal with them, whenever we talk about the diesel, I can't help myself but to become a bit nostalgic. Now, why I'm saying that, let me go back to 3 decades, 30 years back. And there was a recommendation that was made by EPCA, Environmental Protection Authority for the NCR region in Delhi, where it's a committee, it's a body, and it's autonomous body, and they had this authority to actually make a recommendation and give a recommendation directly to the Honorable Supreme Court, who actually was overseeing the pollution situation in the NCR region, for the reason that the Delhi was seen to be, number one as far as the ambient air quality, bad air quality is concerned. So there was this recommendation which was given by this EPCA body to actually ban the use of a diesel for the private passenger vehicles, which means the passenger cars. And so therefore, we as Tata Motor, we used to be called that time as Tata Engineering. We decided to basically challenge that in the Supreme Court. And so we actually put forth the rationale as to how diesel should not be banned, what are the benefits of a diesel, and if you actually ban diesel, then you are actually encouraging a technology. That means you are actually dictating a technology. You are not dictating the norms, but you are dictating a technology. And every of a technology, so for example, when you take the case of a IC engine coupled with the any fuel type, you take a diesel, you take a gasoline, you take a CNG, it has its own emission profile. So therefore, when you artificially say that I don't want to go with the diesel, you are actually encouraging the pollutants which come out of the alternate option that you are actually wanting to go with. For example, if you cut the diesel, actually when you go with the gasoline, then you will have the excess of a CO and the excess of the HC.
And even particulates.
Yeah,
And there was no GPF for a long time. Now
Yeah,
that has come in.
Absolutely. And therefore, if you go also with the CNG, then the CNGs are known for having the submicron size particles which can go deeper in the lungs. So actually, we put forth the number of, the rationale to actually demonstrate that diesel should not be banned. And these are the benefits which are there, as the diesel as a fuel. And, after hearing all the arguments, and this went on for quite some time, finally, the court, on the basis of the wisdom that they had, they actually agreed that there should be a norm and not dictation of a technology. And therefore, that time, the BS2, equivalent of a Euro 2 norm, came in Delhi in year 2000. Otherwise, it used to be like a Euro 1, So therefore, we said, why not go to the BS2, deploy it uniformly across all the fuel and the technology categories. And that's how the diesel, that's the story I thought I must tell you here.
And some of your competitors didn't have BS2 at that time.
Yeah.
Some of your competition didn't have BS2.
Yeah, they did not have, but it was essential, to say that, there is a potential in the diesel, that it can meet the BS2 kind of emission norm, thought to be quite stringent in those times, because then you also require cleaner fuel and all that. So the point I'm trying to make here, that it is not the first time that the diesel is coming under the attack. It has been. It's a legacy, with the diesel, that, it's a whipping boy. And therefore, every, spurt, 3 years, 4 years, you have a situation where, the diesel, you always get confronted with the, the attack on the diesel. But I agree with what Vishu said just now. The diesels have come a long way. So from where it started with the pre-BS1 with certain profile of the emissions to now the, the BS6 phase 2, there is a significant cleaning that has happened as far as the tailpipe emissions are concerned. And therefore, thanks to the basic improvement in the combustion technology as well as the usage of the after treatment, notably being the DPF, there is no stigma now to say that, the diesels are dirty. I think they have become much, much more cleaner. And now we are talking about the fuel neutral norms, right? When we talk about the BS7. So with this as a background, now therefore if you look at, I think the question that you were asking, the question number 2, which is a bit technical in nature, so I will attempt, to restrict and then just give the highlight of that how did Tata Motor we achieve with just L&T on the 1.5 liter engine, the BS6 phase 2 norm. I think you are right, because that's a very, very unique example in the country. The Nexon, which is the flagship product from Tata Motors, actually has met the BS6 phase 2 with just L&T. Now, if you look at how we could do that, so from BS6 phase 1 to BS6 phase 2, there is a certain degree of a stringency. That stringency came in the form of, the OBD limits, both for the NOx as well as the HC plus NOx. Also, the PM monitoring came into the picture, and there is a, the expectation in terms of durability. So all put together, it was a step up in terms of the hardening of a regulation in the BS6 phase 2 compared to the phase 1. So we had actually a choice to make, either go with the, the off-beaten path, which is about, going with the SCR and be done with that. Or, because since we also were hearing the voice of the customer, there was the consumer class, which was actually preferring to go with the L&T, where you don't require the, the DEF, diesel exhaust fluid, to be filled in the DEF tank. So we wanted to, therefore, take this as a challenge, give a challenge to the engineers, look at, what can be done. And one of the important criteria when you have to go for the L&T is to ensure that the exhaust temperature in the duty cycle is actually below 400 degrees centigrade for the L&T to, give you the, let's say, the efficient conversion of the NOx. So NOx, L&T basically you use it for the purpose of the NOx emissions. So now how do you cut down, how do you ensure that the temperature is below 400 degrees centigrade? Then there are a bunch of the things that you can do at the base engine level, bunch of the things that you can do in the after treatment, and certain things that you can do in terms of, let's say, the software and the calibration in the real world duty cycle conditions. So we wanted to ensure that we basically reduce the exhaust temperature. So you work on turbocharging, you work on, let's say, in-cylinder swirl, you work on how to reduce the parasitic losses, how to basically optimize the L&T in terms of the configuration size specifications. And also when, everything from the hardware and the software side is in the place, how do you do the calibration in the real world so as to ensure that the temperature profile is always less than 400 degrees centigrade.
Right.
So this was an extensive work. I must say it was going on for quite some time. When we finally achieved, we also wanted to check the durability because, as a part of a legislation, you also need to ensure that there is a durability of the emission. So a lot of work was done to ensure the emission robustness, durability was checked, and finally when it was all seen to be okay, there was an engineering sign-off which was given to go ahead for the series production. So what I have told you in just 10 minutes, actually it's a work of more than 2 years. But it was a very interesting project, I must say.
Harshad, before I jump to you, just, Mr. Viswanath, Delphi again was part of this, but I just want to maybe challenge you all on this system because clearly with L&T, when you have to kind of, periodically, let's say you need a rich injection, to clear the L&T. So an impact on fuel efficiency. And another question, very frankly, are you on the edge with this technology? Because clearly an SCR is a more safer and a more, how do I say, I wouldn't say reliable, but just a safer way of giving you that much margin to take care of any variation in different conditions, maybe high altitude or whatever. So and I'll be honest, I spoke to some OEMs, global OEMs, of course, they said, they didn't want to, they wanted more of a buffer and a margin. So just very frankly, wanted to understand, really a very bold and innovative step, but, just these two parameters, was this a concern?
I think Petkar said a lot of things. One thing he did not say is, we were the partners in that program.
Yeah, I know that. That's why I brought you in. Yeah.
Anyway, thank you. So I think the key point there was, we could have just said, we'll take SCR. Like Petkar said, we could also have done that. But we also wanted to challenge. And the challenge came in the form of a long-term durability. It's always very easy to achieve emissions.
What about fuel efficiency?
Fuel efficiency, the difference is very, very small.
But there is a small difference.
We need to look at the duty cycle before we conclude. Because there is anecdotal evidence to say SCR system is better. But it depends on the type of vehicle, duty cycle. We have done back-to-back tests at our end, where a customer had a doubt whether SCR was a better solution as compared to L&T. In fact, we did the back-to-back test, and at the end of the test, customer himself said, okay, on our programs, we'll shift back from SCR to L&T. So the customer actually changed. He was running SCR, he shifted to L&T. So I think we have to remember it in terms of duty cycle application, rather than an anecdotal evidence of something that happened in the West, where the driving speeds are much higher. We drive a lot slower, and city traffic, we know how it operates. So I think key for us was long-term durability. We did a lot of work in that regard. And more importantly, I think we had the challenge of keeping the costs in mind. That's how L&T solution. And also some of these, for example, we talked about basic step 2 where the PM levels are lower. Again, with Tata Motors, we have done a program of removing the PM sensor itself by doing a virtualization.
Oh, I see.
In fact, it is one of the presentations for today, when we'll have a chance for that. The key point here is, how do we maintain the competitiveness of a solution for acceptance? We can say diesel is required, or gasoline is required, or EV is required. Unless it is competitive, I don't think we can continue to support it forever. And diesel being a legacy of more than 100 years, the only way it can remain competitive is to keep coming up with solutions like this. And L&T, PM sensor virtualization, these are some of the things that we have done to remain competitive.
Right. No, very, very interesting. I think it's been a fascinating innovation. Also, jumping to you, lubricant technology company, clearly lubes play a very important role. I think fundamentally, I think in fuel efficiency. So clearly, I think the move is constantly towards lower viscosities, just to, standard reduce friction, improve efficiency. So just wanted to understand, in this backdrop of diesel still being very relevant, but again, constantly being pushed to clean up its act, just let's say the role of a lubricant technology player.
Thank you. Thank you, Hormazd. And as we, talk about lubricant, and basically as Infineum, we are one of the leading lubricant additive technology suppliers. And the way we work is possibly having that engagement with OEMs like Tata or Mahindra to try and understand what's it really that we're looking for right at the start of the game. If we can get that insight and input early on, then it becomes very, very easy, or rather it becomes really exciting for us to work on those challenges and try to forge our way ahead in terms of contributing. Because for a long time, if you look at the history, lubricant has been a sort of an aggregate that goes in, but it's more of a protection, making sure that the functioning and the films are available to prevent wear. But the fuel economy part really started to emerge only after the emission norms started to get more and more stringent. And we were looking at lubricant also playing its part, basically in the overall efficiency gain that we are looking through the powertrain. And when we start working on projects like this, what really has to happen is you need to look at what are the different attributes that you can, change or create or customize specifically for that application. So you have to work on those pinpoints and really get your overall solution together so that it then complements with whatever the OEM effort is, because it's a holistic situation, right? You are only a part of the game. You're not going to run the whole thing together. But the good thing that I would say is lubricant has been given a responsibility in terms of looking at, can we move the viscosities lower? Because the traditional approach has been the thicker the film, the lubricant film inside the powertrain, the more protection it gives. But how do we play within that challenge? How do we kind of look at, bringing the viscosities lower in order to complement the fuel economy gains that we want to target?
Without compromising the life of the engine.
Absolutely. So you have to actually look at the aggregate life as well as you're looking at even the oil life, because it has to sustain for itself within the powertrain. So, if I just look at the journey here, we were dropping the viscosity by almost 20-25% in the engine. But at the same time, we are looking at the durability. We are saying we need to have the protection. So when you work on, efforts
both
like
are
this,
conflicting.
Exactly, both are very conflicting ideologies. So the whole intent is to make sure that the ultimate protection is there by way of then, upgrading the technology, which is basically the additive part, the chemical balance, looking at the components, looking at that technology. You have to really balance that out well so that you then are able to bring down the viscosities yet give the protection. You can still help manage the powertrain efficiency whilst not compromising on any of the other attributes. So as I say, it's an effort that goes hand in hand, and you have to really make sure that you are validating, revalidating things, because ultimately the customer has to actually use the vehicle and operate it over a period of time. So you need a lot of data on the ground that really has to prove it. And it can't be just done, something which is done elsewhere can be adopted here. It has to be on the ground, real world conditions, proven, validated, and then accepted before it makes its way into commercialization.
Right, very, very interesting, Harshad. I want to turn to a topic which I think it's looming above for the industry. Potentially, when it comes, there's no clarity on it. BS7 with Euro 7, we follow from Euro 7, and CAFE. Now we know CAFE is going to become more stringent, both from the drive cycle point of view and the actual, let's say, emission standpoint. So, challenges and opportunities for diesel, Velu. I think, as you said, you've really had the vision, Mahindra had the vision of really, developing these world-class diesel engine family. And I have no qualms in saying that, I think all of us have really liked it. And you said it's even future-proofed. So, but are there some challenges also? Challenges typically could be in costs. I don't know, would be getting into a scenario where you need an extra SCR, system to kind of really take care of NOx in that sense if the levels come down dramatically. So just, your outlook, because finally the whole, how do I say, future of diesel, yes, it can meet future emission norms, but they always come at a higher cost for diesel sometimes than they do for gasoline engines. And that really has, kind of pushed diesel to the bigger, more expensive SUVs where it makes more sense, and we've seen them, being phased out of the smaller vehicles clearly because the cost advantage, the cost disadvantage is not making economical sense for buyers. So again, just coming back to that, what is the scenario for diesel in this really outlook of, or the looming scenario of a BS7 at some point, but more immediately tougher CAFE norms?
So before I step into, I just want to strengthen what Petkar and Vishwa said. Our pickup trucks, the Bolero pickup that we sell quite large numbers, it runs with LNT technology. It's a 2.5 liter engine.
With LNT.
And it runs cooler. And in all the mountains and everywhere the people go, you don't get a urea easily. So therefore and it's also speed limited to 80 km per hour.
Right.
So therefore, it's a perfect technology, and again, it is a domestic. It doesn't exist in Europe, but whereas here it's a fuel efficient, low speed.
So that's really Indian innovation.
Indian innovation. So that's I think it's perfectly fits. We don't go to copy everything. Coming to this, the future of diesel powertrain and its role in CAFE and the role in emissions. Euro 7 or the BS7 proposed would be more or less how do you manage the things in operations. For example, if there is the loss of the Euro 7 or the BS7 could be and what they're proposing.
And what I understand is it could be a little relaxed also, not that stringent as a big jump over BS6.
So as far as NOx emissions and PM emissions are concerned, it has reached to a value. No more tightening, you are going to get any benefit for the money that you are going to spend.
Right. And these are the biggest costs to reduce further.
But what is very important is in the real running, today if there is one component failure, for example, EGR cooler failure, or an oxidation cat failure, or a PM cat failure, or whatever, you have to demonstrate every single component failure, and therefore you are able to detect it in the tailpipe. Now that's OBD, diagnostic system.
That's OBD, yeah.
But in the Euro 7, what is coming is the system. There can be a combination of EGR and then a CAT failure, the temperature sensor failure. Every system you have to monitor any combination failure, and the value going high in terms of particulate or the NOx emissions or the CO2 hydrocarbon emissions, you need to detect it and you need to stop and bring the vehicle to workshop. So it is a OBD, onboard management, rather than an onboard diagnostics. So that's a big shift that it is moving. Of course, the reliability of all the systems, there is an enhancement, and the certification of onboard management is also being considered to be introduced. There is also change from, all these particulates that we measure is 28 microns diameter that you measure it, and we count the particles. So we count 6 into 10 to the power 11, which is 600 billion particles is the limit, and then you count it. That's what the PM particles that we count. In Euro 7, this PM20 or 23 will come down to PM20. So you will start counting from diameters from 10 micrometers You will start counting it. So that is a significant change. So the filter that we have put in the exhaust system, the sizes have to go down because you cannot allow that quantity to go out. So today you are allowing anything below 23, potentially you are allowing. By legislation you can allow.
Right.
But in reality we are filtering lower. But the legislation will move down to 10, PM10. That's a significant change that we need to cater.
So more efficient DPFs will be...
More efficient DPFs, that means there will be an increase in back pressure.
Right.
And there will be an efficiency topics that you have to address it now. So that's the challenge that it is bringing, but the engineers are very innovative that they have found a solution. So that's on the DPF side, particulate side of it. NOx side, to give the system robustness, you need to add one more is SCR CAT for the D and E segment, about 2 liter or 2.2 liter. That's the thinking. That
for the heavier vehicles, sir.
The smaller vehicles where the duty cycle is less, traditionally you have an engine for a 4-meter car, you have a gasoline engine of 1.2 liter and a diesel engine of 1.5 liter. Obviously you have got more cubic capacity in the diesel engine, so its duty, the vehicle load onto the engine is that much lower. So you don't need a 2-stage SCR system in the 1.5 liter category. So I don't think much will change for an 1.5 liter category, except efficiency improvements on the intercooler, on the turbocharger, and the fuel injection systems, and the overall software to manage the calibration to get the robustness. That will always be there. But the diesel is the filling in gap. Like hybrid is a filling in gap, diesel will be the filling in gap to meet the CO2 norms. Look at the gasoline and the diesel in the real world fuel efficiency, because the real world emissions will be measured and CO2 will be measured. So that's the gap, the filling in gap till we get the EV story going up to 70-80%. The diesel we have to
diesel will have to fill a gap.
Will have to fill the gap, and it's an established technology, and all the caps that were there in terms of particulate and CO2 and hydrocarbons and NOx, all of them have been addressed. And it is proven reliably. The diesel has been proven reliably, and therefore it's a good candidate for the CAFE norms and for the applications.
Right.
The C and D, where the 6-7 seaters, large movers that we have, it's a good candidate.
And in fact, I think majority of those categories, they are diesel driven. In fact, I think even for some of y'all, it's a majority is diesel. For it's right now 100% diesel, and it seems to have a good demand.
The reason that we come with the electric is we have the social responsibility that sooner or later we want to move it to electric. Right. And that's why you see the Mahindra bringing up this
I think it's very clear electric is definitely the future, and how far it's ahead is the question. And
at the same time, you invest in new technologies in the diesel and make it diesel the best in the world. And so that you are able to get efficiency, you are able to get lowest emissions. That means you have the social responsibility to do that one. The other thing we need to also remember is the C and D segment cars cannot survive with the gasoline alone or the intermediate technologies, and therefore diesel and electric are the two prime drivers that we see it.
Right. No, thanks, Velu. That was a very, very good insight. And Mr. Petkar, just taking off from what Velu said, again, clearly looks like there's going to be a big cost issue going forward. And clearly, again, it would typically, imagine it would push diesel to the C and D segments of the heavy, big SUVs. Might be a challenge in mid-size SUVs, or maybe not, because as he said, there's because of the light load applications, you don't really need that extra cleanup technology, to be honest. But just to know going forward, clearly it's going to be no major breakthrough technologies, but everything incremental going forward with diesel to kind of meet future norms. And of course, CAFE seems to be one advantage which can really be used. But I think from Tata Motors' point of view, with your electric fleet right now, that may not be such a pressing need, or your electric market share.
Yeah, so Hormazd, I think just to put the things in the perspective as far as the cost is concerned, and I will give you the relative comparison between the gasoline and the diesel because they both neck to neck in certain categories of the vehicles. If you look at the evolution of the diesel, I think maybe more than now 25 years back, there was a predominant use of IDI engines. And then with the advent of a common rail, and I must appreciate Delphi taking lead. Thank you. Okay. So, so Delphi taking a lead in actually bringing common rail technology into the country. So this kind of a quantum jump in the cost structure for the diesel has happened more than 20 years back or 25 years back. So from IDI to DI, there was a significant cost increase. And it was a big effort, collectively put together by the entire, whether it's auto OEM or the tier one vendors for the, the technology related to the injection system. I think a Herculean task done to basically ensure that the common rail technology gets very well accepted in the market. It started with the passenger car and then graduated toward the commercial vehicle also, heavy-duty commercial vehicle also. So from cost point of view, that was one significant jump. The second significant jump came in when there was a transition from BS3 to BS4, because BS4 also required, let's say, the low sulfur fuel, 500 ppm, compared to, the BS3, which was around 1000 ppm. And the third, and much more significant cost increase that happened was from leapfrogging from BS4 to BS6. And then, all this SCR, DPF, they came into being, LNT, they came into the being. So, in a manner of speaking, the diesel engines already have survived these three...
Despite these huge cost escalations.
Yeah, have survived these three cost escalation, and therefore it has come to a certain stage. Now, why I said, there is a relative comparison to be done. Now, you take the case of a gasoline. Now, gasoline today, more than 90% of the gasoline are the MPFI. How many are GDI, right? So, there is a transition which is happening to GDI. Same situation, what diesel was facing 20, 25 years back is being faced by the gasoline because there is a significant...
There's turbocharging also.
Yeah, there is a cost increase because of a GDI. Then there is a turbocharging. And then you also add additional gadgets like EGR, cooled EGR, all of that.
And now GPFs will also come
and now the GPF. So therefore, if you really look at on the time horizon...
So interesting. So what you're saying is the gasoline costs are slowly narrowing the gap with diesel.
Exactly. And then on the top of that, if you want to do the hybridization, then, it's a further cost
Different
escalation
ballgame,
just to match with the fuel economy of a diesel. So I think now from henceforth, whether it is for the WLTP or for the BS7, whether there is going to be a significant cost increase on the diesel, the answer is clearly no. What would happen basically is that there would be a certain increment that would be there. There will be a lot of work that would be done in the area of the control strategy, sensorization, what Vishu spoke about, the virtualization of certain sensors. Innovation will actually happen in that. Very, very unlikely that there will be a, the quantum jump in the basic, the material cost as far as the diesel powertrain, including the after treatment is concerned, while, going towards the BS7. And the BS7, hopefully, is going to be in line with the Euro 7. Of course, we need to look at the contours of BS7 because there is a committee and subcommittee which is currently working on deciding how that BS7 profile should be for India. But what it used to be, I mean, the consideration in Europe, the Euro 7, to be much more, complicated and much more stringent is not the case now. There is a good amount of a water down that has happened. I think the sense has prevailed, what should be done. And so with that kind of a scenario, I don't see, much of a challenge coming in the way. Rather, the diesel would act as a catalyst, in terms of meeting the CAFE norm, as well as, to meet the advanced BS7.
Right. I mean, that's a very encouraging outlook because clearly, typically every emission norm kills one whole range of engines. We've seen BS6 come and a whole range of engines have been, killed. BS 6.2 came, again, a whole bunch of engines because sometimes it's to do with volumes. Manufacturers don't have the volumes to justify that upgrade. But Mr. Petkar, I think you've said a good thing that, so in a way that means the future of diesel is good because after BS7, you can just go on and on, with diesel vehicles. Yeah. So there's absolutely no end in sight in that sense, or there doesn't need to be. It's all, of course, whether the customer still wants it or not. But there's also the government policies and judicial activism, which we'll come to later. That's the only kind of sword hanging over people's neck. But Mr. Viswanath, I just want to touch upon, again, BS7 and CAFE and, the toughening norms. From Delphi's point of view as, really a tier 1 supplier, do you see any big kind of shifts in technology? I mean, injection systems, that sort of thing that need to be kind of, let's say, upgraded to meet the, future norms?
The short answer is no. The long answer, I will go no. See, the thing is, we are talking about BS7. But before BS7, we have got the WLTP norms coming in 27,
right?
Which I see as a bigger challenge than even BS7. I think people are still talking about BS7 in a big way, but for me, I think for the market, for the Petkar market at least, the biggest challenge is going to be the WLTP norms, which are.
But wouldn't that be an opportunity for diesel as well, in a sense?
In a way, yes, but more importantly, a lot of work needs to be done. But the advantage is if you do that work, then BS7 is nothing. You're just walking into BS7.
Right.
By doing this, every 2 years you bring in new set of norms. What's happening is we're only keeping our engineers busy. I don't think anybody is making money out of it or getting advantage of all these emission changes which are happening. Other than all engineers are busy meeting one emission norm or the other. Right now, we are all focused on CAFE, we are all focused on WLTP, and this is a challenge in some ways. But as I said, looking at the norms, looking at the results that we have obtained till now, hardware-wise, we don't see any change in the system required. Whatever we have developed till now will continue to BS7 and beyond.
Right.
And of course, like Petkar was saying, some strategy development needs to happen, some fine-tuning. All those things will continue to happen in any case. As you want to improve the performance, as you want to improve the efficiency, you have to do that. That should not stop the use of diesel engine or a technology that we have developed today to continue into BS7 and beyond.
That's very encouraging. And Harshad, just turning to you, from lubricants and additives, obviously they also need to up their game to meet the new changes in emission norms. So clearly your role to play as well. So, a very critical role because clearly, as you had said earlier, it's all about, is it fundamentally just down to getting the efficiency better? And a simple thing, low friction and long life as well.
No, there is another element to it because one was surely to create the right fitment for the efficiency gain. That was just a part of the overall effort because there are two parts of it. One is what can you do from a rheology perspective, what can you do from a chemical perspective. So that's something that you're doing. But the other element is when we're talking about the after treatment devices and we're talking about DPFs. And the sensitivity of the DPF is because it has these noble metals. There is this components which are there as a part of the lubricant coming through the additive.
And there'll be more loading of that with the higher standards.
Exactly. So those are ash limiting that we need to be looking at so that the ash that is being generated does not go and poison the DPF. So that became a legislation actually with the some time back. So, just repeating from what Mr. Viswanathan said, we are not going to be redoing anything. A lot of that fundamental chemistry changes have already happened. So they are in there. But when that change happened, it was like, pulling out something and you need to substitute it with something which was equally capable of giving that performance. So that work has already been done. And now we are going to look at what's the next in terms of getting out of the engine. So maybe that chemical box needs to be tweaked a little bit more. It has to be made a little bit more component specific to make sure that you get the right performance that you can drive through the engine. The longevity of the diesel engine I see going forward is still good because though there have been, mixed statements in the industry about what's going to be the future of diesel, and we have got two views which are still very strongly supporting that. And I think in complementing to that strategy or that plan going forward, from an additive industry perspective, I think Infineum has got still a lot going on in terms of developing products for the new specifications that are going to emerge. Because with every change in the emission norm or every change that happens in the landscape, there will be a specification that gets drafted out to kind of meet the expectations of the OEMs and the customers. So you have to be, as lubricant manufacturers and additive manufacturers, working towards it. And that's in line with how the industry has been working traditionally. So that approach goes on, and we create the right fit to match those specifications. So till now, we are not withdrawn anything. We are still having a long-term roadmap, which is complementary with our R&D efforts. So products will be put on place. We will have new products to work on the next emission level, and the effort will continue. So I don't see anything really going out or really being pulled back because of a lot of, I would say, speculation in some ways about this whole thing.
No, I think honestly, this has been very, very enlightening. I think, in fact, very, very encouraging. The fact that, number one, as Velu said, you can meet the emissions norms. As Mr. Petkar said, that, the cost has already been kind of, you've taken the cost hit already, especially the jump from BS4 to BS6. As Mr. Viswanath, you also said, you don't think there's going to be a huge cost increase. So in that sense, I think there is a future. But what I want to end on, and I think this is a very important point, is how do we convince the anti-diesel brigade, because it is quite a powerful brigade. I think, it's firstly the courts, to be honest. I'm sure in the best interest, they do want to curb pollution, but one gets the feeling that I would even go so far to say they've been misguided by certain quarters which are anti-diesel. And there's this, do you think also there's this perception that after Dieselgate, there's a view that the industry can't be trusted? They've cheated on it, so why should we listen to them? Whereas activists have the greater good in mind. The auto industry, it's all about making money and profits, and they don't care about the well-being. These are the kind of perceptions and narratives which are being spun. So I think I'd just like to get from all the panelists, what do you think should be done? Because I think right now, technologically, there's no challenge. Cost-wise, there's no challenge in meeting tighter norms. The only challenge is convincing certain powerful quarters, because, that bogey is always there. That sword is always hanging over your neck. Like one day there'll be an AQI problem in AQI will go down in Delhi, and suddenly there'll be a diesel ban. Now it's even thinking of it, talking about it even in places like Mumbai. And this could spread very rapidly, unfairly that too. So I think this, to me, is the biggest danger right now, more than, the technology and the costs, which what we spoke about. So, Velusan, just wanted to get your thoughts on this, because do you also feel that this is something as an industry, more effort needs to be done?
So if you take what happened in Europe, they were saying ban ICE vehicles, ban diesel everywhere, and then that was emotions running. The emotions running because there is a scandal, and everybody felt, so how could somebody do, a non-professional job? I think that was fair. I mean, it was an emotional cry, and it spread everywhere with the kids and everything. But then they thought about it. The rational mind came in and switching back. The electric is not taking off as much as that they thought. Now, even they are thinking of, they declared 2035 death date for end of ICE. And now they are saying, no, we are not saying, and everything is like.
And certain
so now
companies are reinvesting in ICE.
Yeah, the calmer and rational mind is coming. And then quietly the diesel is selling. As I said, the premium, most luxury manufacturers in the world who are in Germany, they are 30, 35 and 40% share in the C and D segment. Diesel is selling. And the trucks, the diesel is the main economy spinner. And then the courtrooms everywhere, they realized now there is a realism. And there is a technological facts on the table. So you are talking about NOx, which is very similar to gasoline. You are talking about particulate matters. Of course, it's very well controlled. Now they are talking about, along with the diesel, they are talking about a tire wear, and they are talking about brake wear, and all these stuffs. Then you are equalizing diesel one among the rest of the players. And I think they have come to that realism, and that is somewhere a person like you, I would appreciate what you are doing it. I mean, putting the facts on the table. When you put on the table, a lot of people are listening. And I think that is the stage where even in Delhi, they are now, if at all they do something for the city pollutions, they are only talking about the ICE versus electric. They're not singling out any particular powertrain.
And maybe pre-BS4 or something.
Pre-BSing. One thing is that the maintenance that is being done by the users and the law enforcing agency who are checking the vehicles, they should make sure that if they find one vehicle polluting, they take it off. Don't put it in the public eyes.
Right.
Yeah? The policeman. The one vehicle that is going spreading the smoke is spoiling the whole party. I think that's the message that we should, I have been telling to the government whenever I meet the higher authorities, and that it's just for simple to tell to a traffic police, if you find any vehicle emptying smoke, catch the license and take the key off.
Right.
That's it. And then the diesel impression will change.
Yeah, Mr. Petkar, I think, what Velusamy said, that, I mean, even now, are the courts realizing, I mean, there's really not much for them to stand on when you present them data, especially after BS6, especially if the NOx has come down by 70-80%. The two bad guys, DPF and NOx, were the real bogies for diesel. Do you think, there's more, let's say, pragmatism now, or are emotions still high? Or do you still think that, places like Delhi, there could be a problem even with modern diesels and, in Mumbai? So just your thoughts on this. And even the fact that today, why should there be a 5-year difference to deregister a car of 10 and 15 years, 15 for petrol, 10 for diesel, should that be equalized going forward? And frankly, does that rule apply when you even go to BS6? I mean, is a BS6 10-year-old car going to be that polluting? I mean, it was in 2020. Now we are already 5 years through it. I mean, would in 2030, does it make sense to deregister a BS6 car? So, these are some of the questions which are a bigger challenge for diesel, because then customers are worried and scared and they don't want to buy diesel. And I think a lot of them are not buying diesel, not because they don't like the technology, but because of these factors.
Yeah, so I think a lot of efforts are being put in by the industry members, and also by the industry body, whether it is CIM or the ACMA. And I think the best thing to do would be to be transparent, work collaboratively with the government authorities and the NGOs. Of course, their intentions don't seem to be bad, but I think it's just lack of understanding. And I think once you put the figures in terms of what the BS6 diesel has done with the passage of technology with the DPF and NOx reducing technologies and the robustness of the emissions, I think that speaks for itself. So perhaps it is the lack of understanding, lack of appreciation, that the diesels have come a long way. And therefore, a good amount of, the communication strategy, talking in various forums, doing demonstrations, showcasing, what all has been done by the industry, and not to forget about a lot of work done by the oil industry.
Right.
In terms of bringing down, at one point
Sulfur.
of time, we used to have 10,000 ppm, then 5,000 ppm, now 50. It is less than 10 ppm. Yeah. I mean, so much of investment government also has made into actually, cleaning
up the fuel.
Cleaning the fuel also. So overall, it has been a good concerted effort. I think it is just about, good communication, be transparent, and work with them, and actually allay all the fears. And, what is the share of a new diesel in the whole vehicle park which is there on the road today? It is minuscule.
Right.
Right. So that is not the culprit for to say that there is a pollution coming because of a diesel. It is all because of the antiquated vehicles which are there, which have been running, not maintained, belching smoke.
Yeah, 10% create 90% of the pollution.
Exactly. And then you start to do whipping to the good boy, and then you give a layer of, these are the profiteers and all that. So you can go on and on that line.
Right.
But actually it is not very, the right thing to do. And therefore we at least believe in, collaborating, working transparently with whosoever wants to talk about the subject.
Right. And Mr. Viswanath, diesel being a whipping boy, do you think that, as Mr. Petkar said, intentions are good, but do you think this narrative now, they've gone so far down this road of making diesel such a bad guy, sometimes it's difficult to move away from that narrative and, they just don't want to hear it if diesel is not so bad. And, it's just this narrative which we've been stuck with. It's populistic, it kind of gets... and with social media today, it's you're kind of a hero if you kind of vilify diesel, that sort of thing. Do you think it's too deep-rooted, or now we can, now the effort should be to change it and not make it an issue going forward?
You're absolutely right. I think it's very deep-rooted now. Difficult to change, but we have to, because there is a responsibility on all of us to educate. I think key word here is education. How do we educate the people, at least the people who are influential, the lawmakers or the people who decision makers? How do we educate them on the benefits of diesel is something that we should all embark
The sense
upon.
one, they don't want to listen even if you try.
I know, but I think through people like you, you are a very influential person in the automotive market today, and what you say carries a lot of weight. So somebody like you saying that diesel is not bad, or having such conclaves in multiple cities, it's also is a big step or a right step in the direction. We need to push the message that diesels are not bad, and somebody like you saying that will add definitely a lot of weight to it. The second is something that even the OEMs can look at, is fleet replacement. See, we're talking about bad diesels because of the age-old vehicles. Where is the fleet replacement coming? Once that comes in, then clearly all the bad elements get removed, and then
That's
the
where
newer
the
vehicles
minister
come in.
spoke of a scrappage policy also. We need
All
that.
those are important. All those things, if they happen, I'm sure we can get over this very quickly, and we learn. I'm sure everybody's reading the papers, everybody's seeing what's happening in the rest of the world. And Europe is saying we have to continue with diesel engines for some more time. And this message will not be ignored. I'm sure it will not be ignored.
Right. Harshad, we're running out of time, but we've run out of time. Actually, just a quick response from you, on the narrative, your thoughts on what can be done to change it, because this seems to be the biggest problem right now facing diesel.
My very quick answer is the proof lies in the pudding, right? Because you have seen the journey that India has been upon in terms of the diesel. We have been a diesel economy. So just by wishing away diesel, we can't say that diesel is really detrimental. It's been the backbone for us. So the fact remains that when there is a proven or an experience that has already been created, even with the parameter that we have to meet is the emission norm. As long as we are meeting it, as long as we are meeting and complying with the legislation, there should not be any iota of doubt about the performance of the product. That's what is the elementary part of it. So as long as that is communicated well, and we have the demonstration, or we have even today in terms of the RDE mandates, which actually look at the real drive emissions. You're looking at the vehicles on the road. So there cannot be even more or better data points than those to really push forward this thought process. And that's what, as a part of the fraternity, the OEM industry, the automotive industry, and everyone else, tier 1, tier 2 like us, we are all a part of this communication plan that we have to be adopting for ourselves, talking to the different sections within the legislators to make sure that the message goes through strongly and clearly, that this is not really what we are trying to address. This is possibly better, or if not equivalent, in terms of the options we have in the market.
Thank you very much. And just before I wrap up, we can take just maybe one question if anyone has. Right over there, we've got, can someone pass the mic there? On that side, to my far left. Is there a mic getting there? Yeah. Yeah, over there, I think. Can you raise your hand again, please? Yeah.
Yeah, good afternoon. I'm Lakshmi Narasimhan from Turbo Energy. Yeah, first of all, I thank the great mind sitting in the dais, assuring that the diesel will continue for some more years. This is a good news. But one thing to ensure that diesel continues to be preferred fuel for the commercial vehicle and SUVs, it's a wild thought. I don't know whether it is justifiable. As we have commonization in many of the products, like mobile chargers, we had many mobile chargers, and now we have commonized. As a country, to protect the diesel, why not all great minds sitting in the dais come out with a common diesel engine for various powertrains? Say 1.5 liter diesel, 2.5 liter diesel, it can be a single engine for all the OEMs. That will give cost efficiency and also belief in the general public. It's a common engine. It can be serviced anywhere in the country. And you will also have potential to export also. If that concept is proved in India, it can also get exported. It's a wild thought. I don't know how it will be accepted because each OEM has a unique concept. But to protect diesel, as it is a tradition of more than 100 years, if OEMs can come out and have a common engine, that can be a great idea. It's a wild thought. I don't know how it will be received.
Well, I'll ask the two OEMs to answer this, but I would imagine that for everyone, the powertrain is their secret sauce. That's their heart. I think people don't always share it. And I'm not sure that you need a common one to kind of proliferate diesel. It's as long as you meet the emissions, it should be good enough. But I'd like Velusamy and maybe Petkar to quickly give a quick short answer.
It's like asking one single supplier for...
You will have cost reduction.
It's like asking one single supplier for turbocharger and one single supplier for common rail and one single supplier for piston. I think that's a bit of a stretch when it comes to realism. There is an ecosystem established. Even in common rails, you have two sets of suppliers, well known, and then the competition is what is giving us the best. And we cannot kill the competition for commonality. Commonality shouldn't come at the way of performance. I think that's the reason we keep it our own unique.
Right.
Yeah, so I would like to see his point more like a business proposal rather than, that because the diesel is under threat, so we should work together. So I think this needs to be seen from the business angle rather than as a solution to, what we are debating.
Right. So, but I think clearly you have enough scale to not need to kind of, you don't need the scale of both volumes together. So I guess that's the answer. Well, that's a wrap. And really, I think this was, to me, actually a very enlightening panel and a very encouraging discussion today because clearly diesel has a very strong future. As I said earlier, from a technology standpoint, from a cost standpoint, there are no really big hurdles going forward. The big hurdle is really changing the perception of diesel in the minds of key, powerful policymakers. And with that, a wrap on this panel. Really a big thanks to my very esteemed panelists who really gave us some fantastic insights. Thank you.